Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this video I want to give you guys my tutorial for DaVinci Resolve 14, which if you don't already know is a video editor, but the free version, as you may have seen in my review from a couple days ago, is actually quite complete. It allows you to edit up to 180p, 60 FPS, and export with no watermarks for completely free. So it's a really cool video editor and quite powerful for basically free. And of course, once again, they do have the upgraded version if you need more. So we're going to go ahead and get started in this project, and I'll be basically editing a video from start to finish. Nothing too special, but I will try to cover all the main features that most likely you need. So when you go ahead and boot up the DaVinci Resolve program, it's going to give you this initial splash screen where you need to either choose one of the previous projects that you've worked on by hovering over them and clicking on them, or you can click the new project button down there at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So a new project, we have to give it a name, and I will be calling this the DaVinci Resolve Tutorial 14. I guess that should be DaVinci Resolve 14 tutorial, and we'll just leave it at that. So clicking create, it'll go ahead and open into the main screen. If you've ever used a pretty full-featured video editor, it should look quite familiar in general. So we have the preview window for the clip that we're working on over here. Both the clip that we actually have selected in the media pool, I think is the one on the left, and then the one on the right is the clip as played from the timeline. And the timeline is where we're going to be essentially editing most of our video together, making cuts, putting clips together, and adding in music. So in order to get items into the media pool, we need to add them from anywhere else on our computer. So one way, which is probably the way I prefer to do it, is just to copy them in. You can see here it says the clips have a different frame rate than the current project settings. So if you want it to automatically match the project settings to the clip, we can go ahead and hit change down here at the bottom. So let's just go ahead and change that there, save us a little time later. And I'm going to full screen it for the rest of this tutorial. So another way, of course, to add media would be to go to the File menu, do Import Media, and as you can see, Control-I on the keyboard is going to give you the same kind of shortcut there. So just locate it wherever it is on your machine and bring in what you want. So we can, of course, have different types of media. You can see here a video clip. You can see here music by Kevin MacLeod. And you can also add in images and things like that. So any component of the visual audio space in your video editing. And what we're going to want to do here now is to grab our unedited clip and drag it into the timeline. So I'm just going to drag it down there, and there we go. So you can see it initially creates two tracks for us, video 1 and audio 1. So video 1, that's of course going to be our visuals. You can see as it goes along in the timeline, it can give us a little image preview of what it's going to look like in each of those frames. So that's really helpful. You can see which part of the video you're actually editing before you go ahead and click in it to see it pop up here in the preview window. And on the bottom, we have the audio from that video. So you can see there is audio levels, but in my case, the audio levels were probably a little bit low here. So one thing we might want to do at some point is open up the mixer over here at the top. And okay, yeah, the reason it's not spread out more is because we only have two tracks here, or one audio track. But you can toggle the mixer on and off at the top. And if you want to boost the sound levels on an entire track, you can do so by basically moving this bar up, which is going to add decibels all the way across this track. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play here, and we'll just kind of see how that comes out. This game, of course, is Hearthstone, and I'm just picking a random video clip I had before. Okay, so we can see the audio down there. We want it to be somewhere in like the high green, low yellow section. So with this amplification applied, it seems to be in a pretty decent spot. We'll just kind of leave that as it is for now. So what we're going to want to do is kind of figure out how we want to edit our clips to make the film. Oh, you know what? Even before we do that, we can do something. We can add in a title sequence. So I'm going to go over to the effects library over here at the top. So media pool effects library. And we have video effects, mostly transitions, audio effects, currently crossfading between different audio clips or tracks. So that like if you want to change from one music song to another, it's going to do it smoothly. And then what we're going to want here is a title. So I'll just drag this in and we'll give it a shot. Let's see how that looks initially, and then we can edit it a bit. Okay, nothing too fancy. Just for the sake of test, let's see what that text says there. Okay, so that's a little bit more like what we actually want, just a centered title sequence. So I'm going to double click on that and we can change some settings there. So I'm going to boost the size up a lot. And this was a clip for a pack opening video, so I'm just going to call it card pack opening, and we'll leave it at that. Probably want to change the size here, give it some shadow, things of that nature. You have all the settings available here. So drop shadow looks like it's actually enabled by default, but we can make that a little bit bigger. So let's see what happens when we increase some offset. Just kind of playing around with the settings here, and yeah, that's not too bad. You can see a little bit there. You can also add stroke around the border of your text if you want. And you can also add in a background color. So the background color, I think we're going to want something like that. So to actually get this background to show up, what we need to do is add in height or width to our clip here. So if we add this in, a little bit of height, we can scale it up to 1 or above. 1.0 meaning the full height of our video, and then we can also scale the width as well. Maybe we don't need that much opacity, so I'm going to lower that down. And actually, I don't want that to cover everything. I just kind of want it to be a box around the text. So that actually doesn't look too bad there. You can, of course, get more complicated, add in images, that sort of thing. Maybe we'll change the font. I'm not a real big fan of that really basic Times New Roman font. In fact, one font that I do like a lot is Sego UI. So we'll try that, lower the size down a little bit, and that'll be the clip there. Now we can also fade that in and out. So if we want to be able to see what we're doing as we add in one of these video effects as a transition, we're going to want to zoom in on the timeline. So there's this bar over here at the top of the timeline. You can see a negative on the left and a positive on the right. That's our zoom bar. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here, and let's see what's going on there. So video effects. Okay, actually let's just play that and see what happens. Okay, just a simple fade out. Not actually sure where that's coming from, but let's add a effect over here. So maybe we'll do a spiral wipe. So just dragging that effect into the initial clip for the title. So this is going to do a spiral, but only for the title sequence. And if we want to modify the fade out in this clip, we can drag this little keyframe to the end if we want to completely get rid of it, or put it back here at -1 second if we want to leave it alone. You can open up this tab for a little bit more information and change the curve of exactly how it's going to fade out, if you want it to be a linear fashion or if you want it to speed up faster at the beginning or the end. That's available for you there. But I guess that'll be good for basic title clips. So what we're actually going to want to do now is probably cut some of this video up. So in my mind, if it's a card video, we only want to really see the cards. We don't want to see the time when I'm taking a card of packs and putting it on the pedestal. So we can speed up the video by basically cutting to the point where the new cards are being opened up. So in other words, we're going to make some cuts here with the razor tool, and then we're going to delete the clips that are unnecessary. So let's see. I guess I'll go ahead and, So I'm going to hit the spacebar to start playing through the initial clip, and I'll hit L to make it go faster. So whenever it gets to this point where I'm putting a new pack on the pedestal to open it up, I'm going to make a cut, Oh, wow, that's even cool. I didn't know about this before. But if you kind of hover over here with the tool, you can see the exact moment where you're going to make the cut. That is actually really cool. So I'm going to make that there. And we're going to get to about this point where the cards get opened up and you actually see the cards. So this will cut about, I don't know, 3 seconds out of every part of the clip. And if we want to delete it, there's a few different ways you can do it. Using the selector tool over here on the left, you can select it, hit delete, which automatically ripple deletes it. You saw how the clips to the right moved over here to the left. So that's usually what you want by default. If you want to just cut it out normally, you can use cut or Control X. So I'm right clicking and going to cut. There's also ripple cut or ripple delete. So that's pretty much all you're going to need to do there. And we'll go find the next point in time where I need to make a cut. And actually, we don't really need to find it because, as I mentioned at the start of this video, we have this thumbnail previews. So we can just kind of go over to where we already see these thumbnail previews and figure out where we need to make our cuts. So, okay, pack getting on the pedestal. So right about there, make the cut. And let's get to where the pack's being opened up. And cut that out. And we'll do it one more time. So pack. And then cards being opened, ripple cut. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and play what we already have here. So we have the clip playing as normal, and then it just jump cuts to the next pack. Might want to take a little bit off at the beginning there. And actually, there's a really good way we can do that, which is trim edit mode. So let's play this back one more time. You can see that there's about a second that isn't really necessary. So with the trim edit mode, I'm going to click on the right side of this clip that we want to edit. And I'm going to drag it to the right a bit until we get it to where we want it. So, okay, the card's being opened there. So the trim edit is done as soon as I let go. And we can play that one more time to see how it goes. And less wasted time. So cool. Okay, so in a video like this where we have a lot of these card packs being opened up, the viewer might get kind of tired of it at regular speed eventually. So just hypothetically, for the sake of example, one thing we could do is to click on one of these clips and to speed it up. So I'm going to right click on this clip over here and go to change clip speed. And when you've done that, normally it's going to default to 100, but I was testing it a second ago. So you can type in however fast you want those clips to play back at. So you could go 400% if you want, or maybe 300%. And that would be times 2 speed, times 3 speed, times 4 speed, or whatever the multiple is of 100%. So what you can see happening here is that although we changed the clip speed from 200% to 300%, it's still taking up the same amount of time in the timeline. The reason for that is that with this particular clip, there was still data in front of it, in other words, the whole video that we're editing, the original file. So it used some of that information to fill in the space. If we had taken the original clip that we are using for this video and changed the speed initially, we wouldn't have had that issue. It would have just shrunk from, let's say, 6 minutes down to 2 minutes because 300% speed. But because it sees that data, we need to edit it. So in this case, I'm going to hit play. I'm going to find the spot where the next card pack opens, and then I'm going to shorten it down. Okay. Yeah, and of course you can see, depending on your computer specs, may get a little bit of lag there. So I'm going to trim this down. And we now have one pack that's opening up really fast. Of course, no matter how good or bad your performance is inside of the editor, once you export things, it's going to be just fine. Yeah, that's just the nature of how things are when you actually have the project opened. So we could continue with that process for pretty much the rest of the video. I would say, as I mentioned, that if you anticipate needing to do a clip change speed for a lot of footage, you should probably do the clip change speed first. So let's zoom out a bit, and I'll show you how this kind of works to your advantage. So I'm going to select this big clip, and that goes all the way to the end of our footage. I'm going to change the clip speed to 200%. And when we hit change, it gets shrunk because there's no extra footage at the end for it to keep going. And that may give you more favorable results. Now, one thing that we may still want in our project, of course, is to add in music. So you can see here there's an audio track 2. There may or may not be in your timeline. I think there would be because we added in a title here. But in any case, you can just drag the music from your media pool down to where you want it. If there is no audio 2 track yet, if you just drag below the audio 1 track, it'll be created for you. So let's go ahead and put that there. And, well, basically we have the music there. It's added to the track. You can, of course, lengthen it, shorten it. If you need to, over in the audio effects, you can crossfade between different songs. But what we want to do now is just make sure that the sound levels on the music are at the right level to match whatever voiceovers we have or the original audio of the clip. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play here. Okay, and that's actually not too bad because in my mind I'm thinking that we want the music to be kind of a little bit louder than the game audio. But say that you didn't want that to be the case. Easy fix would be to change the mixer volume level of the audio 2 track. So this track being completely used for music, we can drop that down 4 or 5 decibels or something like that. Now, if you only want to change the volume on this particular music track and not all the tracks you have on one of your audio tracks, then you can actually change the clip volume up here. So by selecting the different clips you have, whether it's audio or video, you'll get these settings up here that you can modify. So I want to change it down 17 decibels. That's all I have to do. You can see the audio height and the timeline kind of reflects that. We want it to be kind of more visible. You kind of see how it's going to the top now. If it's peaking at the top or above that, you may get some distortion in your sound. So you probably don't want it to end up there. So do be careful of that. But I can go to like -1 decibel and that should be fine. Probably make smaller adjustments. Don't go too overboard with it. But in any case, when you're satisfied with the actual audio levels, just hit play, make sure it's still playing decently. And once again, don't worry too much about the frame rate in the editor if you have a weaker machine. It's not an issue. It'll play fine when you actually do the export. And you can go over to color, Fairlight, and then deliver to kind of finish things up. So if you actually need to change or color correct the color in your video clips, here would be the place to do it. Because that's something that most videos don't really need, I'm not going to screw around with it much. Like, yeah, you can see, obviously we can change the color, but that's not something that's really needed for us now. Just know that that exists. So over here on the Fairlight tab, we have the ability to manipulate the audio of our video, including recording voiceovers. So if we want to go ahead and do that, you can see here I've created an audio 3 track. I'll show you how to do that. Back on the Edit tab, if you go over to where you have audio 2 and you right click, you can add a track and it'll give you one of 4 options. Stereo is fine, that's going to be 2-channel audio. If you go over where there's video, you can add tracks, but that's going to be a video track instead. We want this 3rd track so that we can record audio on it. And you're going to want to make sure that your mixer is open so that you can select an import source for your microphone. So after opening up your mixer panel, you're going to want to go to Input over here for audio track 3. Click Input, and you're going to want to assign your audio input, in other words the microphone, to the audio output destinations. So it's actually not audio output that we want here. I'm going to go ahead and unpatch those two. But rather, audio destination, what you're looking for is track input. So the track input, audio 3 left, that's the left channel on the stereo track audio 3, and then audio 3R. So that should be the 2 that we have associated, audio inputs. Okay, and once you have those selected, you go ahead and hit patch, and it's going to assign this microphone to those channels. So I'm going to go ahead and hit X here. And in order to enable that, I need to click R on recording. Alternatively, you can click it over here on the audio timeline. find the spot where you want to start recording from and click the record button. So now what should happen is that I'm talking here and it's actively writing to the track in the tracks which we actually had set to record. So let's go ahead and hit stop now, and let's zoom in and see if that actually worked. So okay, so one thing I didn't need to unattach that I did before is the control room L and R set under control room monitor direct. We do actually want that to stay patched to out 1 and out 2. So I'm going to go ahead and re-enable that, and that should allow us to actually hear the sound when I play it back. Okay, cool. So now we have all 3 tracks of audio playing, including the voiceover, the music, and the original game sounds as well from the original clip. So that's pretty much what we need there. You can, of course, go ahead, do things like the equalizer if you want to filter out some of the music, either the low frequency or high frequency bandwidths. But we're going to leave it there for simplicity's sake. So yeah, once again, just for input, make sure that your control room L and R are set to the audio outputs, and that your track input, whichever channel you're trying to assign to, that's where your audio input of the microphone is being set to. So audio input, in this case audio 3, patch them together, and you should be good to go. So when we have everything in our project all done, we've gone ahead, verified it, got the cool title opening, got the sound levels correct in the mixer and the clips themselves. You can just click on the clip if you want to edit the clip volume up there. And we've got voiceovers recorded. So now what we can do is go over to the Deliver tab and queue up our video for rendering. So you can see options over here on the left. For most people, you're probably going to be using YouTube, I would imagine, but there's also other preset settings here if you scroll along, including audio only. So I'm going to start by selecting YouTube 1080p, or well, let's just do 720. Of course, high resolution means more quality, but also bigger file size. And we can scroll down here to see some of our options. So export video, it defaults to QuickTime.move. I usually change that to MP4, because MP4s are a lot more space efficient and tend to render faster. Frame rate set to whatever the previous video was recorded at, or you can lower it in some cases. So the main thing we're probably going to want to restrict is the quality over here. So if you were recording a video at, let's say, 5,000 kilobits per second, there's no reason to try to export it at 5,000 kilobits per second. So I'm actually going to go to automatic and set this down to medium, because I know from experience that's actually not going to take any quality away from the video. If you're recording, however, with a high definition camera, you may want to just leave it set to the restrict to 10,000 kbs per second. That'll get you a good quality video, but know that the final video export will be taking up more footage. So with that said, leaving everything else pretty much to default. Oh, wait. One thing we can change, the actual file tab up here, we may want to actually give it a name before it exports. So I'm going to say this is the DaVinci tutorial video. I'm going to let the file suffix be automatically determined. It's going to set it as .mp4. And yeah, that should be good. You can also choose an output folder. I think that might be set in the video tab. File. Okay, or maybe it's when you add to render queue. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so add to render queue, you choose the location on your computer, add new folder, whatever you want to do. So here I'm going to set it to my default, which is Videos, DaVinci Products. Hit OK, and now we have it queued up as a job. We don't necessarily need to export it right now because there is a render queue in DaVinci, or DaVinci Resolve rather. So we could go edit a completely new video, add it here to the render queue, and then have that be taken care of then, rather than worrying about it right now. But because I'm only working on one video here in this tutorial, I'm just going to go ahead and hit Start Render. You can kind of see as it actually works, it's going to be playing back some of the preview. And in general, you can probably just walk away from your computer for 10-20 minutes. All depends on how long your video is and how high the quality settings are. and how powerful your computer is as well. But that's pretty much it for recording, or rather editing a video, adding music and title sequences, video transitions, all that other kind of stuff in DaVinci Resolve 14. So I hope that this tutorial has been pretty comprehensive for you guys, at least on the basics of using the app, and I will see you guys in my future video content.